So hi and welcome to the April edition of Anecdotally. I'd just like to share with you a story that we used on episode 21 of the podcast, and it could be potentially very useful if you've got teams that are working together and perhaps not working together as well as they could. Now this story is from Steve Jobs in an interview that was recorded sometime in the late 1990s, and he was talking about an experience that he had as a child when there was, I guess like many of us, there was a house in his street where an old guy lived, and he was kind of in his 80s and he was a bit of a weird old guy, but Steve had mowed his lawn a couple of times and so he knew him vaguely. He was walking past the old man's house one day and the old man walked out of his garage and called him in and said, come in, I want to show you something. So they go into the garage and the old man opens up a bag and he pulls out a rock tumbler. Now a rock tumbler has, it's got a can, something, I imagine something like this, and it's got a rubber drive belt and a motor. And they took the can and went out into the backyard and just rummaged around in the garden and found a couple of scungy old rocks. Just ordinary, everyday rocks. Grey, lifeless. And they put them in, the old man put them into the rock tumbler tin, put in a bit of water and a bit of grit powder, and put the lid on the tin, and then started the motor rumbling, and it started making a huge noise, right? Big noise. And the old man said, we're going to leave that for a little while, come back tomorrow. So Steve Jobs went back the next day, and the old man opened the rock tumbler and poured out onto the table these beautifully polished rocks. They were gorgeous. And Steve was really taken by the fact that this kind of very ordinary grey garden rocks had been turned into these beautiful pieces of stone by a bit of friction, by a bit of rubbing together, by a bit of noise. And he uses this as an analogy for a high-performing team. And so if you've got a team that's got a big task to do and they're maybe not getting on as well as they should, then this is a potentially great story, because a team that works together effectively is going to be people who are passionate. There's going to be a bit of noise. There's going to be strong opinions. And it's only by rubbing against each other, trying things out and making a bit of noise, that you actually have the breakthroughs that lead to the beautifully polished rocks or terrific outcomes. So a good story to use if you're in that situation where you've got a team and you'd like to get them working together more effectively, or at least to understand that dynamic tension is okay. So a potentially useful story to put in your story banks. Thanks for listening. See you next month.